Thank you, Mayor. It was interesting on the way here today. I was driving up I-95, and there's a sign on the right-hand side, right by Griffin Road, and it says "Try Transit." But it's either somebody ran over it or one pole fell down, and it's sitting there halfway, just barely hanging in there. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if the infrastructure part of it was a little bit better, it would look good. You'd have both poles there. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a good compromise. I am in total support of this. I want to thank both Commissioner Ryan and Mayor Sturmer for their discussion. It's gone back and forth, but I don't think it needs to go any further. I think we are at a point where we should go ahead and pass this, and I don't think that we should be trying to control the city's money on this. And I'll tell you why. Because it shows, I don't want it to be interpreted to citizens as we're not trusting them to do what needs to be done. That sends a bad message. I think we should be able to say to the citizens, you should be able to trust us on being able to get the transportation element, and you should be able to trust your cities in getting the infrastructure part of it. The more important part is, from this point on, is that the cities and the county need to work together to develop those projects where you have to have transportation and you have to have infrastructure, and the infrastructure bolsters the transportation aspect of it. I talked with both Mayor Bober and Mayor Cooper. When I think about the FEC coming up, it's going to need operations and maintenance going up and down, but it also needs stations built. And Hollandale can build their station with infrastructure, and Hollywood can build their station with infrastructure. All that's going to, and if you start looking throughout the county on ways that can happen, that's the way these two bolster each other. They help each other. And when I think about that sign, you've got to have both poles. You can't just have transportation and you can't just have infrastructure. They work together. So I am going to strongly suggest to my colleagues that we pass this compromise today, and we put both of those on the ballot, both half penny, and we start to work together toward letting our citizens throughout this county know how this is going to better the quality of life for every single resident in this county. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Sharif.
Thank you. Well, as we were going through the discussion, I don't think that we need to limit the city's half penny to 10 years. I agree with that, Commissioner Furr. I do feel like the half penny for transportation and half penny for infrastructure would work well because they would complement each other as ballot items. I just want to be clear on one thing, that if we do the half penny, that on the half penny, the cities would get 100% of the infrastructure half penny, and the county would get 100% of the transportation half penny, so that we can continue to move the transportation projects forward that we had proffered previously. Am I wrong on that?
You're right. May I?
Of course,
Yes.
absolutely.
You are right about who has control of the money. Yes, city, infrastructure, county, transportation. But there's language that Mayor Sturmer and I've agreed to. So, and that's what this backup is.
Right.
Is that there be a floor of 13% and a ceiling of.
Not a ceiling.
There doesn't need to be a ceiling.
Well, there doesn't need to be a ceiling. You can do as much as you want. Right. But a minimum of 13%, but it was based on a county average.
A minimum of 13%
Yes.
of which one?
The infrastructure to be used for transit or transportation, roads, complete streets, greenways, stations.
So in addition to the county getting the half penny for transportation that we're going to put back into building our transportation infrastructure up, we're going to get a 13%?
It's actually 6.5%.
The cities would spend it for city projects, for transportation, city transportation projects.
In the ILA, it would be,
You guys keep saying it, so let me be
Okay.
let me be specific, okay? Out of the half penny transit surtax, what portion of that would the county be receiving to complete its transportation project?
100% of the transit surtax.
Okay.
The county has.
Now, out of the infrastructure surtax, half penny, what portion of that would the county be receiving?
The county doesn't receive it, but through the ILA, it would be in an agreement that a 13% minimum would be dedicated within that infrastructure to roads, to complete.
So it would be
street-
the city's responsibility to utilize the 13% within their half penny to maintain or create or
Yes.
whatever they want to do with their roads, right?
Yes,
That's right?
You want Dan to come forward, or you want Drew? Because.
I mean, I don't really care who
Yes.
comes forward. I'm
Yes,
just trying
that
to
is-
get it clear because we keep using it.
That
I
is
want to make
what-
sure we're good.
Barbara, that is what we negotiated, which is
Okay.
not what
The
he
it, which
negotiated.
started in my conversations with Commissioner Ryan, the city's proffered originally that out of our half penny, of which we'd get all of it, originally the conversation was 10 to 25% would be committed by the cities on a countywide average to be spent on transit, transportation, or mobility-related projects that would augment and
Well, what we're
supplement the
doing.
regional transportation system. Based upon further negotiations, we increased from 10%
To
to 13%. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm just trying to be a yes. I'm trying to get to
Appreciate
yes
that.
for you, sir.
Thank you,
Okay?
ma'am.
So,
The 13 is the floor.
and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to control it.
Thank you.
I think I have enough faith and confidence in you all that you will make the right decisions on behalf of your residents, just like we're making the right decisions on behalf of the residents of Broward. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what I'm voting on, because the word "it" keeps being used, and it needs to be specified, especially for the people out there that are watching this and the people in that audience. So-
The it is no less than 13% would be spent on transit, transportation, and mobility projects, understanding it could exceed that number greatly.
Right, depending on what you choose is
Correct.
your priority.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate that. All right, so I can support that. I can support that.
Commissioner LaMarca.
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to what we're really trying to do here, the projects that need to be done, whether it's transit, transportation, infrastructure, they're all very necessary. As we go to NACO FAC meetings around the state, 67 counties in Florida, another total of 3,069 counties across the country, everyone is dealing with this issue. The federal government, the administration has talked about where the issues of need are, and these are certainly viable and important projects. And Commissioner Norton, and I know Mayor Ross spoke, but those are two people I know, for example, and I think they would know. I like compromise. I think compromise is great, especially when you look at where not compromising has gotten us. And 50-50 sounds fair on the face. And then I looked up at least the seven largest counties. Now, if we did a 1 cent plus 3/4, if we did a 1/2 and 3/4, or if we get back to where we just do 1 cent. Broward County, Duval County, Hillsborough County, Miami-Dade, Orange, Palm Beach, and Volusia County. That would put us either tied with or the highest, depending where we end up. If it's 1 cent, it will tie us with some of the highest taxed large counties. If we do any form of what was mentioned by Mr. Joseph, we would be the highest. Incidentally, Mr. Joseph, there's a saying, "You the man." You are the man. Thank you for pointing out that 29% is going to hit somebody right where it counts in the pocketbook. I have one big reservation, and maybe the county attorney can help me work through that. The mutual approval language, is that even constitutional or legal? Like if what if people don't, in other words, what if I walk in the ballot, or walk in the voting booth, and I just check, you know what, I'm going to go with the transportation, not the infrastructure?
It needs to be very, very clear on the face of it, but if the cities and the county agree that each is dependent on the other, we believe that it is legally sustainable.
Okay. Okay, so I think what this comes down to is a matter of trust, and where I have the problem, and it's not within the cities or the county. It's never been about that for me. I've been lucky and blessed to work in both capacities, and many, many days I long for my half-an-hour-long meetings in Lighthouse Point. That being said, we were compromising. I think at one point, I think that Commissioner Ryan was actually had a carrot with my name on it. It was somewhere in between 8 and 10 or 12 or less than 20 years as far as a reauthorization or a look back for the residents. But now we're going from 20 years to 30 years. Why stop there? Why don't we just go 50 or 100 years? Let's do a long-term lease on this penny and say we're never gonna trust the voters to vote one way or the other on it again. I have a lot more confidence in the voters. I had confidence in the voters with the Children's Services Council because they knew what was being delivered to the youth in our community, and they voted for it 3/4. It just, once you have something that's 30 years now, your grandkids will be able to vote up or down. This is something to me that needs to be, these projects need to be done. And I look at how do we get to the point where they get done? Well, I think in 2006, the People for Progress, the 1 cent tax was, somebody said 90-20, county was mostly big infrastructure, rail, and that type of thing, but it didn't pass because there wasn't universal agreement between business community, the chambers, the tourism industry, the government, the public side of the government, and everybody just basically destroyed it from within. I think that this is going to be successful, that this is something that needs to have a year's worth of planning. That compromise that we all talked about needs to be something that is compromised both in local governments as well as with the other communities out there. And I think it should be on a gubernatorial ballot. I mean, we had 2 3/4, 75% success taxes, $800 million school board bond. Children's Services Council, $65-70 million every year. People went into the voting booth with Rick Scott on the top of the ticket and voted for that 3/4. That wasn't one group or another group. That was the majority of our community supporting these. My reservation is, as Mr. Joseph said, a big tax hike anywhere from 17 to 19% additional to what we're paying now, all at a time when just last week I couldn't get a majority of this board to cut your property taxes 1%. 1%. It's $8 million over the course of the year. I couldn't get support on that. So I'm not going to be a yes.
Commissioner Holness.
Thank you. From the onset of this discussion, I've struggled with the additional tax because it's regressive. It affects seniors who are in fixed income, low-income families, more adversely than others. Does a need exist for us to enhance our transportation systems in Broward County? It does. Does the cities need infrastructure? It does. The problem I have, which I've expressed several times, is if these communities are going to be impacted so greatly, are we making enough provision to ensure that they get the benefits more so? Seniors get to a certain age, they can't drive anymore. They need mobility. Lower income families can't afford the extra 2 cars in the household, or sometimes even 1. What I expressed at the last meeting, based on what I thought I heard, maybe I didn't understand clearly. I heard 25% towards transportation. Then later find out it's not what I thought I heard. Something different. We have the light rail system being built downtown. And it doesn't get into the poorer community, the low-income community, quarter mile away. It's not reaching them. And in that instance, the money comes out of a CRA fund to help do this. And most of the money comes from the lower-income neighborhood. Yet they're not benefiting from it. So that's the problem I have with this. That we're not looking to ensure that we're lifting up those who need the help to be lifted up. So I'm not going to be able to support it, as I said last week. If it's not 25%, I won't. Thank you.
The next person in the queue, Commissioner Bogan. I just have a quick procedural question for Ms. Coffey. Does anything take 6 votes to pass?
No?
Thank you. Commissioner Bogan.
You know, I've gone back and forth on this a lot. I repeatedly said when I campaigned in 2014, I'm opposed to raising any taxes. And despite Commissioner Lamarca's comment, I think misstated, I've never voted to raise any taxes, and I've always been against the raising of taxes. With that said, this is to be put on the ballot to let the voters decide. And when I came into office, everybody said that the cities and the county don't get along. There's such an adversarial relationship. And what I think is needed here is a divorce lawyer, because it's like a divorced couple with kids. The kids are the taxpayers, and the divorced couple is the county and the cities, and everybody's trying to push each one around. And I certainly would love to see us try to get along. But and I really want to commend Mayor Sturmer for all of his work that I've heard and met with him today, and I've just gone back and forth on this so much. What I do agree with is what Commissioner Wexler said. A half a loaf is certainly far better than none. And I think that with Commissioner Wexler's proposal, the cities are going to go out and sell it and try to accomplish it, where if on the other side, it's going to go nowhere. Now, I've talked to hundreds of residents in the past 6 weeks, from the condos in Margate to Pompano Beach to Coconut Creek, Deerfield. Very few people want a tax. Most of them voting against it. So there's a huge, huge job to do to try to sell this. But I'm going to let the voters decide, and that's where my position is. And I'm going to support Commissioner Wexler's amendment.
I guess I'm the only one who hasn't yet spoken. So Commissioner Wexler, is are you trying to put forth Commissioner Sturmer and compromise? So it's 50-50? Okay, and that's what your amendment would do to what was already been placed on the ballot from before. So it amends what we already are putting on the ballot. Like we already passed to put Commissioner Ryan's on the ballot, so we're amending that?
Yes, that's exactly correct.
Okay,
But it's got other moving parts.
right.
So if this commission agrees with the majority of the elements of the 50-50 split, then next week, are you ready to bring an ILA back next week? Or, I mean, I need, I think may I ask
Of course,
Mayor
absolutely.
Sturmer to
No,
come up?
absolutely.
I would ask also Mayor Sturmer that a comment that was made by Commissioner Holness regarding the where we were the last time we spoke, and the 25% might be appropriate to address
Sure.
as
And-
well,
and-
and your journey to get to where we are.
I think I've attempted to be as clear as I could that in response to the request from Commissioner Ryan, and he knows I've been as clear as a piece of crystal, I've said no to the 25% ask. I've said it in this chamber, I've said it to him privately, I've said it in meetings with the county attorney's office. What I said last time standing here was we would agree to a range of no less than 10 and up to 25% on from infrastructure on transit, transportation, and mobility projects. Maybe that's where you heard the number 25 from. We committed to doing that. It wasn't a give, it was a commitment to spend. So maybe that got lost somewhere, and I apologize if I was inartfully saying something. But there's another piece that is in Commissioner Wexler's proposal, and I have a feeling I'm going to get some looks from this end of the dais. With regard to the proposal that includes, as we affectionately called it, the mutually assured destruction, whatever phrase you want to call it. I'm prepared to, on behalf of the cities, should we get to 5 votes tonight, agree to that. It was a point of contention that Commissioner Wexler can tell you that since she and I engaged in this conversation, she raised the issue, and my first words to her were, heck no. It was a little different, but this is live TV.
Well, we negotiate very nicely.
But in an effort to continue the compromise, and an effort to continue to show the city's commitment to educating the voters on why passing these 2 related requests is important, we are willing to do that. Might it go against the will of the voters? Yes. But do we think in an effort to all get into the proverbial bus, train car, big Segway, take your pick, we're all going to get on it together and walk the road together? 159 elected officials are now, should there be 5 of you that will put this forth, and we get to where we need to be next week, to walk the road together between now and November and educate the voters on why this is important for us. So Commissioner Wexler, in response to the one part you and I earlier today were still saying, I didn't agree with, I will stand here tonight and say to you, we are prepared to do that.
I've been thinking a lot about this. It's going to be a close vote. And here's the, I'll tell you my thoughts. I honest to God believe this. You all know how I feel about increases in the sales tax. I'm not going to belabor that issue. And I've resisted this along the way. But I do have a grave concern that nobody's bringing up, and I think it's actually important. If there are, no matter what, going to be 2 ballot questions on there that are intertwined, this just doesn't seem cooked to me. And I'll tell you why. What would have been clean and easy for folks to understand, and I think most fair to the voters, there was 1 ballot question. But this whole process kind of went awry somewhere about a month ago or so, or maybe before that, and now there are many competing ballot questions. And I think about this. We have the one that's already on there. We now have one to amend that one, so something new gets put on there. We also have the one the cities are putting on there, and then we also have the one here that we're required to pass to put on there. And if we pass out item 73, that amends the one that we're putting on the ballot, so puts different ballot language on there. And then, I guess we have to hope that the cities are able to pass resolutions to pull theirs off the ballot, which means that all of the cities have to do that. And then we still have this one over here that we're putting on there as well. And I'm guessing that this is the one that the item number 17 is what we would somehow change that to link to item 73 ultimately. And that to me, that's a lot of moving parts, and it's very confusing. And honestly, truthfully, I know nobody wants to hear this, but I honest to God believe this. The most healthy thing to do, really the most healthy thing to do, is to scrap everything and do it for 2018, where you can have 1 thing on the ballot. That really is the most healthy way of moving forward. Because I don't know how. No. Can you not just have 1 item? Wait, can you not just have 1 question on the ballot, Ms. Coffey?
No.
You have to have 2 questions no matter what. So disregard everything I just said. You know what I mean? And I liked it. Thank you very much. Look, disregard everything I just said. Here's the thing. I have a lot of concerns about this. If there's a compromise that's going to be in place, I'll support it.
Mayor, and just to clarify your point,
Yes.
we need to get sufficient number of cities, as Ms. Coffey said, so there are no more than 50% of the population that of daises representing the population to rescind their prior actions. It's not everybody. And we believe we can achieve that through certain specific cities to get that number below the 50% threshold.
Is there, before you go, let me ask. So just for, I'm trying to get my arms all around this. You know, there have been a few folks that have really negotiated this very heavily. No, I understand. So what would happen next week? Ms. Coffey, I'll let you speak to it. I'll get to you. I promise, Commissioner Ryan. I got the floor. I appreciate it. Let me just ask a few questions. Ms. Coffey?
If you all come to terms, or if 5 of you come to terms on a particular proposal, I would suggest continuing both of these items till next week and instructing us to prepare an interlocal agreement that would achieve taking the city version off and finding acceptable compromise ballot language for both transportation and infrastructure, and then passing out a county infrastructure version that is consistent with your agreement and a county transportation resolution that is consistent with your agreement.
And the interlocal agreement would have to be approved by every single city?
No.
No. Who would have to be approved by?
Enough cities,
50% of the population.
Well, that's what I mean. At least cities with 50% of the population would have to agree.
cities with, enough cities that you are under 50% of the population proposing a separate ballot item.
And Mayor Sturmer, when do you think that could happen by? What would the time frame be? That's my concern, because the supervisor also has this kind of a little time crunch here.
My belief is the cities would, in one meeting, through companion agenda items, rescind, approve a proposed ILA, as well as, at the same time, pass resolutions, which we had talked about at the last meeting, rescinding and supporting the joint effort going forward. So there would be an affirmative statement by the daises as well to move forward with it. Do I think it can be done in short order of next Tuesday's meeting? Yes. Do I think the supervisor needs to give us some time to get there? Yes. But if we walk out of next Tuesday's meeting with what the ballot language would look like, presuming that all gets passed, the supervisor can conceivably have that language, at least space-wise, which is what I understand the concern is, by next week.
Okay, then here's my last question. Is there any likelihood or is there more than just a chance? Is there always that big possibility that even if we do come to an agreement and a compromise, that there will be 2 competing ballot questions on there that could potentially raise the sales tax by 2 cents?
No.
Not at all.
No.
So you can like guarantee that the cities would do that? Okay.
I commit to you and this commission and the residents of Broward County that should next Tuesday come and go and we agree to the interlocking language, that the cities will expeditiously move to remove their resolution from the supervisor's office.
Actually, then my last question, and I'll get to you. I know you're I know you want to answer, and you're right. You know the answers, but so your recommendation, Ms. Coffey, then would be not to take votes on it, but to show that there is affirmative support today to move forward to next week.
I think so, because at the end, the cities and the county are going to have to look at specific language.
To move it
Give us
forward.
direction.
Right. I would, just to let everybody know, I would support moving it forward to next week. Thank you. You may now go, Commissioner Ryan.
From what I've heard on the dais this afternoon, it appears that there are 5 votes that are in favor of a 50-50 allocation. The one I wasn't certain of is the mayor. So, Mayor, you talked about moving it forward. If the body collective wants to go with a 50-50, then let's move on to the next issue. When this county commission passed the 3/4 penny for transportation, we included language that had a level of specificity with regard to an independent oversight board. And it had 9 members in certain specialties or professions. It also had a second layer of independence. It had 5 persons that were not connected with the county or the cities, that was a nominating committee of the 9 persons who sat on the oversight board. We get up here and we talk about, well, let's make a compromise between the cities and the county. it's not going to be our decision. It's going to be a decision of the voters, whether or not they're going to accept, a penny sales tax. And many, many, many people will look skeptically upon this. Why? Because government has a long and storied history of wasting money. And so I will tell you, the Independent Oversight Board, in the language that we have already prepared, is the language that I would expect to be in an ILA. And I would like to get that commitment from you, Commissioner Wexler, because the proposal by the cities is that there are 4 members that are selected by, the League of Cities and City Connections, and 5 that are selected by the County Commission. That, to me, is an oversight board too closely connected to the bodies that are spending the money, and that is not the level of oversight that I would like to see in an expenditure of billions and billions of dollars.
You want to comment for me?
Yes, ma'am.
The reality is that Mayor Sturmer and I, other than the concept of an oversight board, have not really, it was very hard to even get this piece of paper before you that we completely agreed on. And he just stood here this evening and said, I agree on the mutual approval requirement. I didn't know that walking into this room today. I absolutely believe that there needs to be an independent oversight board. I can't sit here this evening and concur with everything that, whatever the paper is that Commissioner Ryan is holding up. I don't know, am I taking over this, or are you, how are we doing
Well,
this?
you-
Can we sunshine this and we'll both be in these negotiations?
Commissioner Wexler, that might be a good idea. This is an amendment that you voted favorably
Yes,
for.
but I
And
also-
you are known to read very carefully items that you vote on. And it's a 9-member oversight board, and here's the
Does
language.
that include the 2 that the cities wanted to put on?
No.
Okay, because I remember the conversation the end of May, that the cities wanted to add 2, one from the league and one from, I don't have it in front of me, so.
Okay, it is
Commissioner Ryan at
one
the-
former elected official, one former city or county manager. I just don't want to get bogged down in an ILA where we don't have the level of independence. I mean, this came out of a long discussion,
Commissioner
even at the
Wexler, Commissioner
MPO, about
Wexler,
the
we're fine with the
profession.
proposal that was in handout 5 at the meeting 3 weeks ago.
Well, there you go, then if he's fine with it, I'm fine with it, but I can't even recall what's in it. A long time ago.
It was the handout, it was item number 5 that was handed out on your 24th meeting 3 weeks ago today that Commissioner Ryan walked on as you were sitting here. That structure is fine.
All right,
Okay. Okay.
so with that,
If my attorney says
We
it's
still have
fine, then it's
voters on
fine.
the queue still. So we still have to vote.
so, all right, so if we've dealt with the oversight
That's not
board,
them, that's
just
him.
just to have this body agree on where we're going. So it was very clear that, of course, we have to have the 2 separate ballot questions because of the expenditure of the funds are very, very different.
I understand.
And so, and you understand that they have to be intertwined so that the parties work together, so that the cities actually work towards the transportation tax, and that the county and its efforts and whoever does advocacy, which will not be either the city or the county, knows that they have to work for both items. So with that, I'm prepared to go forward. The beauty of politics is that you compromise whenever possible. I mean, I think we understand, I stated it, and I don't think anybody disagreed, that it will change the breadth of the public transit system that we will be able to achieve, but it will bring a greater level of certainty that the ballot initiatives will have support by elected officials throughout the county. And with that compromise, I'm prepared to go forward and see if we can work this out in sunshine meetings to iron out the ILA between now and next Tuesday. Now, in the meantime, if something happens, the cities already have a ballot question given to the SOE. Is our ballot question on transportation of three-quarter penny been submitted to the SOE's office?
No, it's not been
All
submitted.
right, so we cannot push up against the deadline and not submit it. So we can both withdraw simultaneously, but I think as we continue to go forward, we should have ours submitted to the SOE as the city's is submitted, and then we withdraw together.
If that's the direction of the board, we can wait until the end of next Tuesday's discussion to do that.
I'd like to do, the
But-
item 73,
But
Commissioner, is
I believe I still have the floor, and I had posed the question to the county attorney. Technically, the email that I saw from the SOE's office is that the ballot questions had to be submitted by the 20th of June. Our meeting's on June 22nd. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I think that we need to submit the county ballot language now, and we'll withdraw it when the cities withdraw and we come to an agreement.
To meet that deadline, we can do that.
We also have Commissioner Bogan on the queue, and then Commissioner Wexler. I just wanted to clarify something. I support moving forward to next week, but there's no guarantee I'm going to vote for this thing. I want to see what's before me next week. So, but I am supportive of moving forward and continuing with negotiations, but there's no guarantee I'm going to vote for it. Commissioner Bogan.
No, I was just going to ask our county attorney if there was any other option with, that Commissioner Ryan was talking about and withdrawing our language. Is there any other alternative?
We actually presently have direction to give it to the supervisor. And Commissioner Ryan is correct. The supervisor has advised that the deadline is the 20th. I heard her say in a workshop of yours that that week would probably be all right, but to be conservative, it would be good to meet the deadline of the 20th. And to be sure that the item is on the ballot, as you've directed, unless you reach a compromise with the cities.
Aren't we all conservatives?
Commissioner Wexler.
So, I sound like those millennials, so I hate to start a sentence with so. No, I do not. Not a good move. Last week, first of all, I did have a conversation with Dr. Snipes. And the deadline is noon on the 24th, not the 20th. She has absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. I don't know if she's in the building, if she's, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you that we had that conversation. Then I posed another question to her. If we are continuing, because I didn't know, I have no idea what's going to happen here today. If we are continuing to show that we are moving towards a compromise, which would require that some ballot questions that are already submitted would be removed and others would be replaced, and we know that this is for the November election, is there a chance of you actually working with us? And she was extremely cooperative and positive in her reply to me. And I think you mentioned about space, placing. Coding. That's really what the issue is. It's not the specificity of the language itself, it's how much room it takes up. And we're all going, everything is going to have the 75 words, 72 words, however many words, 75 words that is allowed. So I said to her, I would not say one word unless this commission, 5 of us, wanted to continue that conversation moving forward. So I think that it is important at this juncture to share that conversation with you colleagues, with you attorneys, that she was very positive and cooperative in attempting to work with us. If it was beyond the 24th, there would be a short window, but she would be able to do that, which would give a little bit of breathing room, a very, very little bit of breathing room to the cities, because the heavy lift for you would be, whatever I approve here, this body, next Tuesday, the board corporate, you've got to do what you've got to do. And I know you're very miracle workers, but doing it in a few days is
I-
beyond,
I think part of the beauty of walking out of here this evening is the city managers will start to receive communications that says, okay, we expect, assuming we have 5 votes next Tuesday, that we're going to need to start having agendized meetings and get the necessary documents on agendas. That conversation can start tonight, tomorrow, from the city managers, my city managers here, as well as some others. Mr. Dodge is here from Pembroke Pines. And by the way, I've spoken with them about the things we've talked about today, and they all approve where we are, so I'm just not standing here by myself saying these things. But we would start to calendar those meetings immediately, so we all could understand by the given deadlines. We can say to the supervisor, this is what's happening, here's the calendar, these 2 questions are going to replace those 2 questions, and do it in a coordinated effort, yes.
okay. So I just think that the deadline of the 20th is not real. The deadline of noon on 24th is when filing closes, qualifying closes. That's her deadline. However, she is willing to work with all of us if it's a little bit longer that's needed in order to get the language to her. I don't have it in writing. I have it, I actually have it, I believe her. There's no reason that she would not be saying, I'm telling the truth, and I absolutely believe the supervisor. So, no, I don't have it in writing.
Okay.
Commissioner Ryan.
All right, simply, I think it's a really simple issue since the cities have their ballot initiative already submitted to SOE, supervisor elections, that we submit our ballot language with the understanding of what we've reached here, and when we have an interlocal agreement that's been approved by the cities and the county, then we mutually withdraw. That could take a week or 2 weeks. I don't want to not submit our transportation 3/4 penny now and then have something, I don't know how far-fetched it is, for some reason, it all fall apart, and then there's just one ballot initiative, and it's only infrastructure. So I think the prudent manner to proceed is to go ahead and put on our 3/4 penny, and we'll withdraw when the cities withdraw on infrastructure, and we have our collective agreement.
Ms. Coffey.
And
Ms.
if I
Coffey.
could respond, I said that it has not been submitted to her yet. I should be clear. I have not done it. It's possible that documents went ahead and did it. So it may actually already be there, but we'll check tomorrow.
I'm just, Commissioner Bogan, did you want to speak? I would say I just respectfully disagree. But I personally do not want to see 2 items on the ballot, because at the end of the day, things could blow up, and then there's 2 items on the ballot that could increase the sales tax by almost 2 pennies. But the votes were there before to put it on the ballot, and that's what was directed. So it should be, I don't want to see it happen, but it should be provided over. Yeah, absolutely. So with that said, it doesn't appear there's going to be any votes today on this, but there appear to be at least,
Mr. Mayor.
oh,
Mr. Mayor,
need to
I
vote?
do think we're going to vote on item 17, and I believe we're going to vote that one down. That was the county language
I
for
would
the
continue it.
infrastructure.
I would continue,
I would
because all
ask-
we're going
I
to
would
do is
Continue it?
modify the ballot
On
language.
behalf of the cities, I would ask you to continue that item till next week.
right. Well, and you said we
17.
weren't allowed to vote it down anyways.
I would simply continue both of them while we
Okay.
continue this conversation.
Definitely. So let's, we're now, so do we need a motion to defer till next week?
We continue the public hearing item, which is the infrastructure item. You can continue or defer the other one
Okay. So,
to the 22nd.
I would prefer, I understand about 17, the public hearing item, but item number 73 is a tear sheet that identifies a 50-50 split. And the elements of that are the bones of what will be, continue to be negotiated. And at least 5 of us here today
I
have
would ask you to
agreed.
take action on that.
Pardon me?
I would ask you on behalf of the cities to take action on that.
Yes, and I was going to move that we at least support the proposed amendment to Broward County Resolution 2016-300 as attached to item 73.
Commissioner Ryan.
Right. These are the terms that we would work out in the ILA. This draft statement is very vastly different than the makeup of the oversight board. So why would you be advancing this here this afternoon at this late hour, this was part of what we were going to be negotiating in the ILA.
That's not the
This
document that was
doesn't even
attached.
talk about the membership of the ILA. All it says is that we agree that there will be an oversight board. That's the extent of it.
If
The
that's
de-
as far as it goes,
That's all,
then,
I think
that's all it says,
looking
is
at-
that
he's
we'll
looking
agree
at-
to an oversight board.
Commissioner, you're looking at a different document. Commissioner Ryan, you're looking at the document we discussed last week at the county attorney's office, not what was attached to this additional agenda item last night.
So let me ask
Right.
just, if item 73 passes, what exactly does it amend from what we do? What does it do? What language does it change?
The problem is that you can, the reason I'm suggesting continuing or deferring is this: you can do it with direction for our office to implement the provisions that are
Okay,
in the tear sheet, but there's not enough here to revise
okay.
your prior
In that,
resolution.
I think we should follow the county attorney's direction and continue everything to next week.
With direction to negotiate to achieve what appears as the additional material in item number 73.
Yes.
Okay, if you,
Mark, you have to put your microphone on.
So wouldn't you want then the commissioners to affirm that by
right.
voting for that?
Defer 73 with direction to negotiate consistent with the term sheets that appears with the additional
Okay.
material.
Okay, so that would be the motion, and that it be negotiations would be consistent with the elements of the term sheet attached to item 73.
Correct.
And we can incorporate what was tear sheet number 5 from the meeting 3 weeks ago.
Yes,
with the
the
over- I
oversight
just wanted to be 100% clarity
Yes,
that the tear sheet number 5, which is submitted by Commissioner Ryan 3 weeks ago with regard to the Oversight Committee as proposed, is acceptable.
yes, that's in my
Just wanted to
motion
be
too.
clear.
Okay,
All right, so is there a motion?
yeah, that motion.
There's a motion. So is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to defer the item with that direction. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Show it's been deferred unanimously. Now, do we need to take any action on item number 17?
Yes, you need to continue
Continue.
it with the same direction.
17 with the same direction.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Show item 17 is being continued with the same direction. Now,
Can I take a,
that's what I say, our poor, our one, Caitlin, who does a wonderful job for us, her arms are about to fall off. And so we need to take about a 20-minute break before we come back to finish up more of what we
Thank you,
have.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners,
Thank
and
you.
County Attorney's Office. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Make it 10.